The store door slammed, its cracked glass rattling. Clara Whitlock stepped into the glare, her basket swinging empty at her side. Dust clung to her hem, and the sun pressed down like a hand that would not lift. She didn't turn to meet the eyes behind the windows, the faces peering from between warped shutters. She walked steady, though her jaw was tight. The general store's keeper had spoken plain enough inside, loud enough for every ear to hear. No credit for a Whitlock. Not a cent, not a pound of flour, not a pinch of salt. His words followed her into the street like the echo of a gunshot. Across the way, a horse stamped and shook its mane. The rider on its back sat still as carved stone. Hat brim low, coat faded from too much trail sun. He watched her with the calm of a man who'd seen all manner of endings. No one in town greeted him, though he had lingered at that hitching post since morning. Clara kept on, shoulders straight, though her throat burned. A wind pushed through, carrying grit into her eyes. She didn't blink. She didn't bow. She just kept walking down that road lined with warped boards and judgment. Bootsteps sounded behind her, measured, unhurried. The sound of spurs, soft but certain. She slowed without meaning to. The rider's shadow stretched long across the dust before her, drawn out by the sinking sun. "Ma'am." His voice was low, almost dry as the desert air. She didn't answer, only shifted her basket to the other hand. "Come with me," he said. "I'll stock your table tonight." She stopped, turned half toward him. The brim of his hat kept his eyes in shade, but his mouth was set like a man who'd made his choice before speaking. Clara's lips parted, but no words came. Behind the saloon doors, someone laughed sharp and mean, like a coyote yipping at prey. She heard it cut off quick when they saw she had stopped. The cowboy stepped past her, motion smooth but unhurried, and put a hand to his horse's neck. The animal nickered low, ears twitching. His saddle was worn smooth, leather dark with age and sweat, rifle scabbard patched twice. No man carried a rig that weathered unless he meant to keep riding till his bones quit. "I've got nothing to pay you with," she said at last. Didn't ask for pay. He tightened the cinch. Didn't ask for thanks. The street lay still. A shutter creaked open farther, then shut again. Clara felt the weight of eyes, each one waiting for her to beg, or bow, or turn away ashamed. She straightened instead. "Why?" The cowboy swung into the saddle in one clean motion. Dust rose from the hooves when his horse shifted. He looked down at her then, the brim still shadowing most of his face. "Because you were turned away." He didn't wait for her reply. He guided the horse down the road, slow, giving her space to follow if she would. Her basket hung empty against her side, the wood handle biting into her palm. Her stomach churned with pride and hunger at war. She saw her reflection faint in the glass of the store's window, a widow's black dress faded brown, a face worn thin, but her chin lifted high. Behind the glass, the shopkeeper watched her. His lips moved around words only he could hear. She imagined the shape of them. "Don't you dare. Don't you trust him. Don't you walk with him." She took a breath deep enough to sting her lungs, then stepped into the cowboy's trail. The road hummed with silence, only her skirts brushing, only the horse's hooves breaking the dust. The wind pushed a tumbleweed across their path, and the rider's gaze followed it for a heartbeat, as if reading some sign she couldn't see. No one called out. No one stopped her. But the town behind her seemed to close its doors all at once. At the edge of the street, the prairie opened wide, endless sage and sand burning beneath the falling sun. The cowboy halted, horse blowing steady breaths, and looked back at her. For the first time she saw his eyes, pale, hard, yet tired, as though he carried a lifetime on his shoulders. "You best fetch your wagon," he said. "I'll see it full before dark." She stood a long moment, caught between hunger and pride. But in that man's tone, there was no pity, only iron. She nodded once, turned, and started for the cabin she called home. The old storytellers say the dust held its breath that evening. They say the widow walked taller on the road back than when she came down it. And they say the stranger, that lean, weathered figure, was already drawing the shape of legend in the fading light. For when he spoke those words, "Come with me, I'll stock your table tonight," the town knew the tale had begun. The axe bit into the log with a crack sharp enough to scatter crows from the cottonwoods. Chips flew, and the cowboy swung again, shoulders loose, rhythm steady as breath. Would split clean down the grain. Behind him, Clara's children carried kindling to the stack by the wall, arms straining, faces solemn. The sun sagged low, bleeding the sky red. Smoke from the chimney curled against it, carrying the smell of beans simmering in Clara's pot. She stood at the doorway, basket now heavy with flour, salt, and lard that hadn't been hers that morning. She watched the cowboy split another log, muscles tight beneath his faded shirt, movements too practiced, too calm. "You work like a man chasing ghosts," she said. The axe stopped. He lifted it free, let the silence draw long, then leaned the handle against the stump. Ghosts do plenty of chasing on their own. The wind pressed through the yard, dragging dust across the fence line. The board still leaned. 2 rails snapped where riders had forced their way days before. Clara's eyes lingered there, jaw set. "They'll be back," she said. The cowboy pulled a kerchief from his pocket, wiped the sweat from his brow, and met her eyes for the first time since the road. "I reckon." Her children crept inside, baskets clattering. The sound of their small feet faded. Clara stayed in the doorway, arms crossed. "My husband's blood's in this dirt," she said, voice low, flat. "They put him in the ground a mile from here. Crane's men, and the law did nothing." The cowboy bent, lifted another log, and set it on the stump. His hand rested too long on the haft of the axe before he swung. Wood cracked, echo rolling across the dry fields. Clara waited. "You've known men like them," she pressed. The axe fell again. The blade stuck deep, the log splitting uneven. He left it there, buried. "I've known worse." The words dropped like stones. He turned away, walking toward the fence, boots crunching gravel. He pressed on the broken post, testing the wood, then pulled a coil of wire from the saddlebag hung at the rail. Hands moved deliberate, wrapping, binding, tightening. "You were somebody once," Clara said behind him. He kept working. Wire cut into his palm, blood seeping thin. He didn't slow. "Men carry names," he said. "Names get heavy. Best to leave them behind when they drag you down." Her breath caught. She stepped from the doorway into the yard, skirt brushing dirt. "You don't talk like a drifter. You don't move like one either. The way you hold yourself." She stopped. "Who are you?" The cowboy twisted the wire hard until it sang, then let go. The fence stood straight again. He looked back, shadows cutting hard across his face. A man who's seen enough. The last light burned down. Coyotes yipped in the distance, sharp and hungry. Inside, the stew bubbled. Clara set bowls, her children's chatter low and careful, as though afraid of waking something asleep at the table. The cowboy ate slow, hat hung on the chair, lines carved deep in his face. When the boy asked his name, Clara hushed him, but the man only gave a small smile that never reached his eyes. "Name's not important," he said. Later, when the children slept, Clara sat by the fire, mending a torn sleeve. The cowboy's boots rested heavy by the hearth. He sat in shadow, gaze on the flames. "They'll press harder now," Clara murmured, needle pulling thread. Crane doesn't let go. The cowboy's jaw worked, but he said nothing. "You could leave," she said. "No one would fault you." He shifted in his chair, firelight flashing in his eyes. "Could. Won't." Silence spread. The crackle of logs, the whisper of thread. Clara looked up, studying the hollows of his face, the scars not hidden by shadow. "You've killed men," she said, not as a question, but a truth. The cowboy leaned forward, elbows on knees, hands clasped tight. He stared into the fire, as if it showed him something she could not see. "Men fall quick," he said. "Some deserved it. Some didn't. I remember both." The words hung heavy. Clara felt the weight of them pressing down, thick as the night outside. He stood sudden, pulling his hat low. "I'll sleep out," he said, voice flat. "Keep watch." She wanted to stop him, ask more, demand the truth he kept buried. But the door shut soft behind him, and the night took him. From the window, she watched him settle against the fence, rifle across his lap, a shadow against shadows. The land seemed to breathe slower with him there, as though even the coyotes thought twice before calling again. The storytellers say he sat that way till dawn, unmoving, only his eyes awake. They say no wind rattled the cabin, no rider dared approach. They say Clara Whitlock, for the first time since burying her husband, slept through the night without fear. And they say in his silence, the cowboy remembered every ghost he'd left behind. The smell hit first, sour, bitter, wrong. Clara dropped the bucket into the well, pulled it up, and gagged. Water sloshed black, dead minnows floating belly up. Her hand flew to her mouth. Behind her, the children ran barefoot through dust, chasing each other until they stopped short, eyes wide. At the fence line, the cowboy stood still, gaze hard on the horizon. Boot prints cut deep in the dirt, hooves scattered wild. He had seen it before she spoke. They poisoned it, Clara whispered. The cowboy didn't answer. He knelt, scooped a handful, let the foul water drip between his fingers. His jaw clenched once, then he poured it out. The boy kicked to the dust. Why'd they do it? The cowboy looked up at the boy, then passed him to Clara. To remind you this land ain't yours. Evening came heavy. The fence rails hung split again, this time slashed with blades. Wire twisted loose, posts left leaning. Clara gathered what rail she could, her hands raw, splinters biting deep. The cowboy worked beside her, silent, mending, setting, binding. Every strike of his hammer echoed like a drumbeat across the valley. They spoke no word, but both felt it, Crane's hand pressing closer. At supper, the children ate in silence. Clara's spoon scraped her bowl, the sound sharp. The cowboy pushed his plate away, half full. They'll come harder next, he said, voice low. Her fingers stilled on the rim of her bowl. How do you know? He didn't look at her. Firelight shadowed his face. Because I would. That night, riders passed near the cabin. Hooves thundered, laughter cruel. A torch burned against the black sky, then fizzled in the dust, left as warning. The children clung to Clara's skirts. She pulled them inside, bolted the door. Through the shutter, she watched the cowboy stand in the yard, rifle resting easy in his arms, body still as the fence posts he guarded. The riders didn't stop. They wanted him to see. They wanted her to know. By morning, whispers ran through town. Men spat tobacco into the street, muttering a name with the weight of rumor. Ash McCallen. The blacksmith swore he'd seen him once down in Santa Fe, 6 men lying dead in the street before his smoke cleared. The bartender said he was the same ghost who'd fought in the war, carrying fire through a canyon and never missing a shot. Others claimed he vanished 10 years past, walked away from blood with no goodbye. By noon, every tongue in town carried the name, but none dared speak it when the cowboy tied his horse outside the smithy and walked the boards with silent steps. Clara heard the whispers too, though she didn't ask. She saw it in the twitch of his hand near the holster when a door slammed, the way his shoulders stiffened at the sound of boots on gravel. He never denied, never confirmed, only silence. 3 days after the well, Crane came himself. The ground shook with hooves when 7 riders crested the hill. Dust boiled behind them, rifles glinting, coats snapping in the wind. Clara's children ran for the cabin, calling her name. She stepped into the yard just as they reined up, horses frothing. At their center, Crane sat straight-backed, broad hat, coat of fine cut, boots polished though the trail was rough. His eyes were pale, lips thin as wire. Mrs. Whitlock, he called, voice smooth as oil. I'll give you one chance to make this easy. Sell your land. Take your brats. Leave before the week is out. Clara stood still, fist tight at her sides. The cowboy moved from the porch, boots sinking into dust. He stopped halfway, loose, unhurried. Hat brim shadowed his eyes. Crane's gaze slid over him, mouth curling. And this is the great protector? He laughed sharp. His men joined him, rifles tapping against saddles. The cowboy didn't move, didn't flinch. Crane leaned forward, voice harder now. I've burned families out before. You think I won't do it again? You think one broken-down drifter scares me? Still, no answer. Only silence and the wind tugging at coats. Clara's chest rose fast, her breath ragged. She wanted to scream, to strike, to beg him to leave. But the cowboy stood calm, and his calm held her fast. At last he spoke, voice low, almost soft. 3 days. Crane's smile thinned. 3 days, the cowboy repeated, eyes lifting at last, pale as winter sky. Then you'll know if I'm drifter or death. The men shifted in their saddles. Laughter faltered. Crane sneered, pulled his reins tight, and turned. Burn with it, then, he spat. The riders wheeled, thundering off, dust swallowing them whole. Silence fell hard. Clara's children clutched her skirt, faces pale. She looked at the cowboy. His shoulders were still loose, but his hand rested now on the worn wood of his holster. The storytellers say the sun hung blood-red that evening, sky burning down to ash. They say the land itself waited, holding its breath. And they say the widow, standing in her yard with her children pressed close, saw in that moment not a drifter, not a man, but the shadow of something greater, something terrible, that had only just begun to wake. Hooves pounded like thunder rolling out of the canyon. Dust boiled across the plain. Torches flared against the night. 7 riders bore down on the cabin, rifles flashing in the firelight. The cowboy stood at the gate, loose as wind in the grass, hat brim shadowing his eyes. Clara's children huddled behind her on the porch, their small hands clutching her skirts. The boards creaked beneath her weight as she braced herself. The riders drew up hard, horses screaming, torches spitting sparks. Crane sat tall at the front, his coat whipping, his face pale in the torchlight. "Time's up," he called. His voice cut sharp across the yard. "Burn it. Burn them all." Flames licked the dry grass as a torch sailed through the air. It spun, sparks trailing, struck the dirt, then snuffed under the cowboy's boot. He didn't move fast. Just one step, steady, the torch crushed flat beneath his heel. His hand hovered low, near the worn leather of his holster. The riders jeered, rifles rising. Crane sneered, teeth flashing. "Kill him." The first man drew. The world cracked. Smoke split, fire spat, and the rider fell sideways out of his saddle before his gun cleared leather. The cowboy's revolver bucked once, then settled still, barrel smoking. The yard froze. Torches hissed. Horses trembled. The second man fired wild. The cowboy moved like water, 2 shots, thunder sharp, and the rider toppled backward, hat spinning, body crumpling. Then it broke. Gunfire split the night. Sparks showered off the cabin wall. Clara pressed her children down, arms shielding them, as the world roared. The cowboy walked forward, not rushed, not frantic, each step measured. His revolver spoke again, and each time another rider fell, their cries cut short, their horses screaming as they scattered. 6 shots, 6 bodies in the dust. Silence followed, sharp and endless. Smoke curled above the yard. Horses pawed the ground, nostrils flaring, then bolted into the dark. Only Crane remained, hands white on his reins, eyes wide as glass. His breath rattled. He pulled his pistol, arm shaking. The cowboy didn't lift his gun. He let it hang, smoke drifting from the barrel. He walked closer, boots heavy in the dirt. "Go on," he said, voice low. "Do it." Crane's hand quivered. His mouth opened, but no sound came. He lowered the pistol, breath breaking, then flung it to the ground. The cowboy stopped a pace away. His eyes were pale, cold, bottomless. "This land's theirs," he said. "One chance. Take it." Crane pulled at the reins, spurred hard, and the horse leapt. He fled into the night, swallowed by dust and silence. The cowboy stood alone in the yard, smoke rising from the gun at his side. The bodies lay still, torches guttered out in the dirt. Clara stepped from the porch, slow, her children clutching her hands. She looked at him, at the man who had walked death into her yard and left it behind like dust. He holstered the gun, turned once toward her, brim low. His voice barely carried. "Your table's stocked." Then he walked to his horse, swung into the saddle, and rode toward the horizon without looking back. The old storytellers say the town whispered his name that very night, though most didn't dare speak it loud. Ash McCallen. Some called him a devil, others an angel. All knew he was a man who'd seen too much blood and carried it with him. But in Clara's cabin, they remembered him different. Not as a gunfighter nor a ghost. Just the man who said, "Come with me, I'll stock your table tonight." And they say if you ride the dust road long enough, when the wind dies and the prairie holds its breath, You might still hear the echo of his boots, steady as thunder fading into legend.